أنت سبحانك إني كنت من الظالمين لا إله إلا
Assalamu alaikum, my name is Tariq, I'm with the Mumineen Guards, and I'm going to be talking about the birth and lineage of Imam Abu Hanifa. Imam Abu Hanifa was born, or his birth name was Al-Numan bin Thabit, and he was born in modern-day Iraq. Now, even though there's a dispute or conflicting evidence with the exact lineage of Imam Abu Hanifa, most agree that he was actually not of Arab descent and that his family is from a Persian background and that they were well known amongst Persian merchants of the time. So Imam Abu Hanifa was actually given the title Abu Hanifa because of his devotion to Allah and his inclination towards Islam. And the word Hanifa actually comes from the Arabic word Hanif, which means inclined towards the true religion. So that's where he gets his title. That's been my portion of the presentation. I hope you enjoyed it. Jazakallah khair.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Majid and I'm part of the Mumineen Guards, and I will be talking about the early life of Imam Abu Hanifa. So there's not many sources that mention his father's life, but they did potentially come from a wealthy family, a family full of merchants and a good Muslim family. And actually in a lot of books, it does state that his father met with Ali Talib radiallahu anhu as a child. And then also his grandfather gave Ali radiallahu anhu some sweets for the Persian New Year. And that was actually a very good indication that, that they came from a wealthy background, because of back then giving sweets was more common amongst the wealthy. But Abu Hanifa, he grew up in the hometown of Kufa and he was educated there. His entire early life was there. Aside from that, he would go to Makkah and Medina for his pilgrimages and also for learning. He actually was told by his father, through his direction, to memorize the Quran. But in Kufa, he grew up as a student, as a merchant, a teacher, and then finally he was an expert in the Islamic fiqh. As I mentioned before, in terms of being a merchant, his family came from a merchant background. They sold silk cloth, and they quickly established a reputation for honesty and fairness. There's actually a lot of stories that exist about his life as a merchant, and all of these stories mention, even before he studied Islamic fiqh, that he was a very kind-hearted, honest individual, very generous personality. And one of the stories behind that is he had a partner by the name of Hafs ibn Abdurrahman who would sell cloth at a market. And he told his partner that there was a defect in the cloth. So whoever buys that cloth, to make sure to let them know so that the price of the cloth is done accordingly, right? So his partner, he sold the cloth, but he forgot to mention to the buyer about the defect. And on top of that, he forgot who that buyer was by identity. So faced with that, prejudice of, holding unjust profit, Imam Abu Hanifa, he actually foregoed the entire amount, the basic amount for the cloth, as well as the overall profit, which ended up being about 30,000 dirhams, and he donated the entire proceeds to the poor. So it showed his generosity and honesty. So that was his early life. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Assalamu alaikum everyone. My name is Ahmed Gill. I'm part of the Mumineen Guards. So Abu Hanifa's life took a significant turn when he met Imam al-Shabib. On his way home one day, Imam al-Shabib encouraged him to devote his time to religious studies. Abu Hanifa took this advice and drenched himself into the study of Islamic law, including Quran, Hadith, poetry, language, and more. He also aspired to become a judge to guide people on the matters of halal and haram. This transformation was the result of a chance encounter that changed his course of history, or life.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My name is Adil, and I'm part of the team Mumineen Guards, and I'll be talking about Abu Hanifa's pursuit for knowledge. So his pursuit begins in his study of theology, or qalam, and after mastering theology, Abu Hanifa moved to Kufa to study Islamic's legal knowledge, or fiqh. Here he was taught by a famous teacher known as Hamad ibn Sulaiman. He was considered the most knowledgeable teacher at that time, and Abu Hanifa used to learn from him daily, and he learned from him for about 18 years until Hamad ibn Sulaiman passed away. Being the most knowledgeable, Hamad had been appointed the spot of head for Kufa Madrasa, and the person to take over was Abu Hanifa, as all the other fiqh scholars agreed that he was the most knowledgeable after Hamad ibn Sulaiman. Here, Abu Hanifa concludes his studies in fiqh, and he goes on to master other Islamic studies. And in order to pursue this, he moves to Mecca and Medina. They are known as the center of religious teachings for Islam. In Mecca, he learned hadith from Ata ibn Rabbah, who was a student of Abdullah ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu. He educated Abu Hanifa on many Islamic studies topics, and the amount of teachers that he had varies according to different sources, but he was taught by almost 4,000 teachers, and among them, according to other different sources, 7 of them were Sahaba and 93 of them were Tabi'een. Sahaba being companions of the Prophet, and Tabi'een being the companions of the Prophet. The exact number of teachers Abu Hanifa had is unknown, since he did travel to a lot of different cities to gain religious knowledge. In the end, Abu Hanifa performed Hajj about 55 times, and he is considered a very knowledgeable and very well-versed Imam in the history of Islam. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My name is Omar Malik from the Mumineen Guards. I'm going to be talking to you guys about Imam Abu Hanifa and his relationship with the Khalifas at the time. It's important to know about the history when it comes to the Khalifas, because they are the political and religious leaders of the country. And so if there is a popular Imam like Imam Abu Hanifa and his school of thought and his fiqh and jurisprudence, then depending on the leaders, the school of thought spreads accordingly around the land. So Abu Hanifa rahimahullah is gaining a lot of knowledge. He's becoming very popular and followed by the masses. So the leaders wanted to make sure that he's on their side. But Imam Hanifa didn't want to take any leadership positions where he would be pressured to make certain judgments which might not be fair, because the Khalifas at the time were starting to become very luxurious. They were getting comfortable with the luxuries of this world, and they were staying away from the common people. So Imam Abu Hanifa did not want that gap to take place. So what happens is a couple of important figures that offer him some very lucrative positions. He was offered various posts, including chief treasurer and the chief judge, the Qadi, by Khalifa Marwan bin Muhammad, and the governor of Iraq province, Omar ibn Hubayra. But Imam Abu Hanifa refused both of those offers. And in 763, Abu Ja'far Abdullah ibn Muhammad al-Mansur, the Khalifa at the time, offered Imam Abu Hanifa the position of the Qadi, the chief judge of the state. But Imam Abu Hanifa refused to do so because of obvious reasons, and wanting to be a fair judge and not taking up these roles under the pressure of the Khalifas. At this, al-Mansur actually said, Abu Hanifa, you are a liar. He accused of him lying because he lost his temper, and Abu Hanifa rahimahullah's response was, then in that case, you should definitely not make me, that I'm definitely not the right person for this position because I am a liar. And how can I be a good judge if I am a liar? So he denied that position. This shows you the humbleness of these Imams, yet they're still left on to become great legends and left a huge legacy because people still went on to follow their school of thought.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Talha Rashad of the Mumineen Guards, and I'll be talking about the death of Abu Hanifa. The response of Abu Hanifa did not sit well with Muhammad al-Mansur. Sometime around 146 after Hijr, Abu Hanifa was sentenced to jail and flogging. It is stated that until he had received 110 lashes, Imam was taken outside and given 10 lashes each day. He passed away in Baghdad, approximately 150 after Hijrah. At the age of 70 from prison abuse or maybe poison, it is reported that Imam Abu Hanifa died while prostrating himself sajda in the name of Allah. He stipulated in his will that he was not to be buried on any property that the ruler had wrongfully taken. When Khalifa al-Mansur heard this, he said, "Who can protect me from Abu Hanifa from now and the future?" Khalifa al-Mansur was in sorrow and he made dua for Abu Hanifa.
All right, everyone, I hope you guys enjoyed the presentation. So we learned that Abu Hanifa, rahimahullah, may Allah bless him, he went through so much hard work for preserving the message of Islam. He was tortured for it and he died a legend. And today we know him as the great Abu Hanifa, with the fiqh of Abu Hanifa spread all across the world. And we owe him for all of the service that he provided. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept from us, and we thank you for watching. We'll see you guys next time.
لا إله إلا أنت لا إله إلا أنت سبحانك إني كنت